explained, quote, "Given the diverse demographic of our community, it was suggested by the advisors that the students come up maybe national pride theme so they could represent their individual nationalities." Many of the students and teachers were surprised and dismayed at the school's decision to cancel the dance. In fact, several students expressed confusion about the decision, saying things like, quote, "People consider America to be a melting pot, so the fact that it was even considered offensive is what people are so surprised about." Evidently, the theme for the dance was put to a vote. The American theme received the most votes, and the school's dance committee, before it was nixed by the higher-ups. School administrators have now created a national pride dance, feeling that it could be more diverse and inclusive. Students still could, of course, wear red, white, and blue if they want. At least that's what the school says. Can somebody please tell me what's going on in this country? It's bad enough that you've got student governments, certain California state institutions that want to ban flags from their lobby. We talked about that. To an extent, I'm okay with that under the certain circumstances and if they're treating all flags fairly. Excuse me. But we're talking about a high school in Massachusetts where the kids voted. They want to have an American theme. They want to have an American pride dance. And I also want to know, what nationalities are you celebrating, you crazy little guys, you, the school administrators? What other nationalities are you celebrating? How many different nationalities are represented in your school district? Because chances are, while there may be a large number of people living in that community that can trace their heritage just a generation or two to another nation, I'm still willing to bet that most of the kids that are attending your school are actually Americans. So, again, the United States is their nationality. You may have some that are foreign exchange students. Okay, but they've come to America to learn about America, to see it firsthand, to experience it firsthand. And you can't experience Americana by being mealy-mouthed and by being so subversive and demonstrating a hatred for this country instead of a love for it. Maybe if you spend a little more time embracing the idea that America, the United States, the freedom it provides you, the people who sacrificed their lives, their limbs, their blood, their sweat, their tears, their families, the people who have given and given unto you without ever knowing you, that have never met you, if you would take the time to understand that all this was done so that you could have a job at a school, a job you chose, a job where you have a chance to influence the young minds of future Americans, maybe then you could embrace the simple truth that is, America's a pretty dadgum good place to be. Is it perfect? No. Have we made our mistakes? Yes. Have we done bad things in the past? Yes. On the whole, there is still no greater nation in the history of the world, period, in the discussion. Anybody got a problem with that? Too bad. Because you can argue it. You can take any statistics you want and try to use them to make your case, but it still comes down to the same thing at the end, and that is the United States of America is a creation of the God Almighty. It is His blessings that have allowed us to become a great nation, and it will be the continuation of those blessings that allow us to continue to be a great nation, not the constant push away from faith and people of faith and people of principle that the left constantly tries to push upon us. The only principles that the left stands for is the death cult of abortion. The only principles that the left stands for is the cult of population control and of the art of division. When was the last time you had a talk with an honest-to-goodness so-called progressive who didn't want to put you into a box, who didn't want to label that box, and then try to tell you that you should be fighting everybody else that's in a different one of their boxes? I promise you, you haven't actually had a conversation with one of them if that didn't happen. Because that's what they do. That's what they're about. Yes, let's talk about our diversity. The kid in the interview was right. The United States is a melting pot. But the problem with being a melting pot is that means that those cultural boundaries that existed before get dissolved and you get blended in with the new culture that is the American culture. If you're not willing to accept American culture, you don't belong here. And that's not a negative statement. That is simply a statement of truth. I would not go to France and expect the French to suddenly start acting American. I would not go to Iran and suddenly expect the Iranians to start acting American. There's a few places on this planet, if I went there and acted that way, I would probably be shot just for that. So I would much rather stay here where I have the freedom to say this for at least as long as the FCC isn't utilizing its new net neutrality rules and saying that shows like mine can't be aired anymore. I will stand up for the principles of freedom where I can, but this isn't about freedom. They don't have the freedom to choose. They don't have the freedom of expression. This is about politically correct educators afraid that they might offend someone who obviously has far too thin skin if it's going to offend them that you have a dance that honors and promotes the notion of the United States. That is, after all, Massachusetts, something that you're a part of. Granted, I know a lot of lefties up there. I mean, I've been to the state, beautiful state. A lot of hardworking folks, which is also part of what boggles my mind that so many of you fall in line with the socialist mentality. I don't understand that. Why, if you work as hard as you guys do, and you do, I've seen it for myself. I've spent time in and around the Boston area. I've been out to the Gloucester area. Loved it. Gloucester's a great fishing village, but it's so much more than that. I actually was drawn to visit the place because of the movie The Perfect Storm. It seems kind of silly to mention that now, but that's part of why I went there. Actually went to the real Crow's Nest. The whole 9 yards, got the experience. Beautiful town. Spent a little time boogieing on over to Salem while we were up there because it was in and around Halloween, so Salem's always kind of a fun thing with the witchy stuff. Just a touristy thing. I have to admit it. When I go on vacations, sometimes I act like a tourist. Go figure. When else are you going to get away with it, right? But I come back to the point that the people of Massachusetts are a hardy, strong, hard-working lot of folk. Why so many of you seem to think that the socialist ideologies is something to embrace is beyond me. Anybody who works as hard as you guys do is entitled to keep what you've earned. You earned it. It's yours, you should get to keep it. Why don't you agree with that? I don't understand. Why do you think John Kerry is a good representative for you? Not only are we going to elect him to the Senate, but we're going to try to help get him elected as president. Why? I mean, once we figure out who folks are about, here in Tennessee, I got to tell you, we do still have some loose cannons. I mean, no state is devoid of them. Texas has Maxine Waters. I know they would like to trade her to California in some type of exchange program, but they've got her. They can't help it. Tennessee, we had Al Gore. But here's what I can tell you about Al Gore in comparison to Kerry up in Massachusetts, and that is Al Gore didn't win his home state when he ran for president. It's because the folks in Tennessee knew what Al was about, and that he was office rocker by that time. This man-made global warming BS is supposed to be some type of litmus test. It's one of the reasons why Donnie Deutsch went after Ted Cruz on Morning Joe. Oh, he's a denier and he's ignorant. The only thing ignorant there, Donnie, is the fact that you don't seem to understand that our climate has a lot more to do with cycles and solar activity than it does anything mankind has done. That's not to say that we shouldn't be good stewards. In fact, we should. We should take as good care of our planet as we possibly can. We should. I'm not against that. I don't think Ted Cruz is against that. I'm pretty sure most conservatives would agree with that. Let's be smart. Let's take care of the planet we're living on. Let's take care of the love. But can somebody please explain to me how we've gotten to this point in this country where suddenly school administrators think that having an American Pride dance in Massachusetts, a state that contains the cities of Lexington and Concord, where some of the first shots were fired in the American Revolutionary War, a place that should have more American pride than almost any part of this country. How people there can think an American pride dance is offensive? And since when, if we're going to talk about it, since when is being offensive grounds for not doing something? Last time I checked, most people on the left thought that when it comes to art, if it's not offensive, it's not really art. Isn't that the rule? Did I miss that somewhere? Can somebody help me out with that? Maybe I just didn't understand the memo. You know, throwing a crucifix in a jar and being all over it is art. Hanging a crucifix on your wall and confessing a love for Jesus, that's obscene. What? Really? Is that where we are in America today? Because if that's where we are in America today, something's got to change. Massachusetts, embrace your American pride. And again, I know this doesn't apply to all people in the state of Massachusetts. I understand that. There's, like I said, I've met several people that live there. Not a one of them I didn't like. Not one. As far as I know, they liked me back. They were very polite about it if they didn't. But regardless, what is this about? I mean, I can't wrap my mind around what is this about. American pride is offensive? Again, I refer you back to the Constitution. Freedom of speech is guaranteed. Now, it's political speech. There's not just freedom of all speech. It's not there. People get confused about that too. But freedom of political speech. Basically, that guarantees that, as long as it's being properly applied, you're going to be offended. You're guaranteed to be offended. So again, schools in Massachusetts, it's almost your constitutional duty to offend somebody, especially if that offense occurs in the process of showing some pride in the good old U.S. of A. That story drove me nuts, and I've mulled it over all day, and all I've done is continue to get angrier and angrier. And by the way, I did come across that article on Pundit Press, in case you're looking for it. You can find that thepunditpress.com, and then all you have to do is look up high school's American Pride dance, and that'll take you to the article if you want to read the rest of it. And there's a lot of other great articles at the Pundit Press, by the way, so I recommend, if you have time and you're looking for something worthwhile to take a look at, spend a little time there. Something else that kind of aggravated me, not that this is surprising, but did anybody catch the press briefing on the 20th Now, today's the 24th, so it's been a few days back. I mentioned that because we're going to talk a little bit about that. But evidently, John Boehner, current Speaker of the House, has announced that he's going to make a visit to Jerusalem later this month.